This is ContraZoom.
Where we go back and forth about film.
I'm Dakota Arsenault.
And I'm Rachel Ho.
And on today's episode, it marks the middle of the calendar year. Wait, no, that's not right. It is now almost into August, so it is not the middle of the calendar year. It is a little past by 2 months, but you know, who's really counting anyways? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our favorite movies of the year so far. And the reason why we're kind of doing this in early August, I know a lot of publications will put this out in like end of June, early July, but really, you know, January, February, it's still Oscar season. You're still catching up on the movies from the year before and trying to formulate your own best of the year list, or at least I sort of do. And you know, February, March, April is really the dumping ground where the studios put out their worst films that they just can't wait to offload, and they can't find a streaming service that is willing to buy it from them. So really, the summer movie season is when the movie calendar really begins, and that's when sort of the good blockbusters come out, and then slowly, every once in a while, you'll get that like good indie drama that doesn't really have real Oscar aspirations that will come out. And so, yeah, we figured this is the perfect opportunity to now talk about our favorite films of the year. We're going to name our 5 best, and because what's better than throwing a little bit of shade, our 5 worst films of the year. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Rachel, but we both are going to have a bit of a caveat of not really including Oscar movies. You know, there's a few movies that came out in this past year, stuff like Minari, stuff like Judas and the Black Messiah, The Father, Malcolm and Marie, things like that that were awards season eligible. And so I'm frankly not including it. I don't know about you, Rachel, but first off, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. And yes, that is correct. I'm also asterisking.
That's a word.
Those movies. Yeah, it's totally a word. Those movies. And I'm not sure what I'm doing for my end of the year list, but for the purposes of this one, yeah, I'm just putting them to the side so it can make room for some other great movies that have come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always tough when we're trying to do lists like this, best of the year, best of the half year, whatever it is, because you're looking at things like festival dates and wide release dates and all this sort of stuff. And it all gets really confusing. And it basically boils down to, when did you see it first sort of thing. And that's when it basically counts, or at least for me, because it's my podcast and I'll do what I want.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, for me, I always think not counting festival, anything that didn't have a wide release in the year is usually off limits to me. Like if it was only available through not a podcast, if it was only available through a film festival, I tend to not include it. Just because I don't know, I don't feel like it's fair because not everybody had the same access to it. Like we're lucky we're able to go to film festivals, like we have the resources to do that, but not everybody does. So yeah, I don't know. It's always a tricky thing formulating any type of top 5, bottom 5, top 10 lists. But I feel like this year in particular is actually more difficult than others.
Well, now I'm really confused. You don't like having a false sense of superiority?
Yeah, not your average film critic, am I? I need to work on that because I feel like to be a film critic, you really need to hold it over people that you've been able to see things that they haven't been able to, that most people haven't been able to see, and then remark with,
Rachel.
Yeah, I know, and then you have to remark it with like, "Oh, you haven't seen it? Why not?" Like, oh, pity.
You'll eventually come to your small town.
Yeah. You'll get it on Netflix one day. Don't worry about it.
By DVD.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of that, completely side tangent, I'm so disappointed that we never had like the Netflix DVD thing up in Canada, or at least I don't think we did. Because that like sounds so cool.
I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but I used to live abroad in the UK, and they had it wasn't Netflix though. It was I want to say it's called Love Film. I think that's what they were called.
But the same.
But it was pretty
concept.
much the exact same thing. Like this idea of they would send you DVDs and things. I was a student though, so I'm like, I have very little money and I shouldn't be wasting it on this. So I didn't. But yeah, we never got it in Canada, which is a shame. You know what? I really miss Blockbuster though, or like I had Jumbo Video around me. I don't know what everybody else had, but yeah, I miss like rental stores because that was always really fun on a Friday night, going there and just kind of wandering around, thinking what you wanted to take out. And then you had your weekend set. I miss that quite a bit.
100%. Yeah. Whether it's, Blockbuster, Jumbo, Video 99, Rogers Video, your local convenience store that had a whole bunch of movies, doesn't really matter. Like, that could be a whole episode being nostalgic about that.
Yeah. I used to always get at least one Mr. Bean movie to bring. Like it would be a bunch of different things and then at minimum one Mr. Bean video.
Of course. Because that would be like the 99-cent section because it was an older release.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it would be like the same ones over and over. And then I think eventually my dad was like, we should just buy this. And I'm like, but it's not as fun.
I've spent more on the rental fees than I have on just owning it.
I had a few movies like that. There were a few movies that I just kept on renting it. And I mean, I was a child. I didn't have money to buy things, so it was up to my parents to do that.
Yes. Yeah. No, good times for sure. But yeah, we should probably get this tangent back on course and talk about our favorite films of the year. This is going to be a short little fun episode. So yeah, we're going to start off with our 5 favorite movies of the year. Rachel, if you want to list off your number 5 through 1, and then we can kind of talk briefly about your list. Sure.
So at number 5, I feel like much music, like video top 10 or something. So at number 5, I chose The Mitchells versus the Machines, which is an animated movie on Netflix. Number 4, I took Nobody, which was Bob Odenkirk. And side note, glad to hear that he's okay after he had a bit of a health incident on set of Better Call Saul.
Absolutely.
Number 3, I chose a Danish movie, Riders of Justice. Number 2, Pig, which is Nicolas Cage's resurgence back into our homes and into our movie theaters. And number 1, I just said I wasn't going to be like a snobby film critic, but I chose one that's not actually released yet, but it will be released, which is 9 Days. I talked about it a bit in the Green Knight episode of the podcast as my double billing for Green Knight. And I actually made a mistake there. I said that it was going to be out on August 6th. It's actually going to be out in Canada in theaters on August 16th or 13th. Wow. Sorry, 13th.
You lied to the audience.
I know, my bad. I was like going through and I went, oh shit, like I said the wrong thing. So it's going to be out August 13th. Yeah, I should have said that. But it's going to be out August 13th. I have had a bit of an advanced screening on it. But it's brilliant. And I want everybody, because it's a smaller movie. And I know that some really big movies are coming out this weekend, like Free Guy and Suicide Squad. So I'd love to push people to watch something a little bit smaller, a little bit different, a little more. It's not, I wouldn't even say it's like an art house movie. It's something a little bit different.
So I've only seen 2 of the movies on your list, and that's The Mitchells versus the Machines and Riders of Justice. So I can't really talk about your other 3. I do want to see Pig. I watched the trailer for 9 Days after you mentioned it, and wow, does that movie seem odd in a very interesting way. So I'm definitely curious by it. And Nobody, how many times have you now watched that this year?
So they took maybe $20 and an old watch? Mr. Manson, did you even take a swing?
No. Could have taken her, Dad.
Heard you had some excitement last night. I wish they'd have picked my place, you know?
Why didn't you take him out?
I was just trying to keep the damage to a minimum.
Oh my God, I've seen it so many times. I think it's probably been the movie that of the 2021 releases that I've seen the most. I don't know why. It's just sounds a bit disturbing because it's quite a violent movie, but it's a very comfortable movie for me. Like it's just you get like a very kind of warm blanket feel from it. I don't know. The soundtrack is amazing. Bob Odenkirk is great. I just keep watching it. And I was a big fan of the John Wick movies as well. And who is it? The writer, Derek Kolstad of Nobody. He is also the writer for Nobody. So it's very in keeping with the John Wick style of film. But yeah, I love it. I'm very obsessed with Nobody. And I'm pretty confident I don't care what great Oscar-worthy movies coming out later this year. Nobody's going to stay on the list.
Nice. Now, I think for me, the mental block is I just cannot picture Bob Odenkirk as an action star. He's just such a wimpy, weaselly character actor. I love him. He's such a good actor. He's so funny. But I just cannot picture him in a action film. And I've seen like a behind the scenes clip where he's like doing chin-ups and stuff like that. I'm like, that's not Bob Odenkirk. Who the hell is this guy? Will I still be sold on it?
but that's kind of the point, right? Like
Yeah.
the point is he is the guy, like he's quote unquote, he's nobody. Like he's a no one. He's your average like auditor accountant dude that lives in the suburbs in a cul-de-sac. He's got 2 kids. His wife's a realtor. Like he's meant to be just absolutely nobody spectacular, and lives this kind of crazy life that his kids don't know about. I won't spoil it. His kids don't know about it, but yeah. And it's I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's like the most compelling, thought-provoking thing that you've ever seen in your life, but it's entertaining and everybody's really, really good in it. It's really well done. Like, it doesn't just feel like a John Wick knockoff, which I kind of thought it might be when I first started watching it. Because you can't really do that. Like, because Keanu, I don't think we look at Keanu Reeves and think of him in the same vein that you think of Bob Odenkirk, right? Like, Keanu's built himself. Yeah, he's built himself a reputation that you're going to watch it and you'll be like, yeah, he's going to kick ass. But yeah, that's kind of the point of Nobody, is that Bob Odenkirk is nobody. And it's kind of fascinating that he is somebody.
Keanu Reeves is good at exactly 2 things, or is known for exactly 2 things: being terrible at Shakespearean dramas, or Shakespearean-like dramas, and being really good at handling a gun.
Excellent. And pencils. And pencils.
Okay. Weapons, I'll say.
Any weapon. He's great.
Yes.
He's excellent. Yes. I could go on and on about Keanu Reeves, so I won't. But yeah, he's great. I'm not even going to start.
Now, The Mitchells and the Machines didn't make my list. It is one that I did quite enjoy the humor, but I found in the end a little too overly sentimental. So that's probably holding me back from being fully on board. But I did really like the character work. I'm a huge Beck Bennett fan, and so him voicing one of the robots was just the absolute highlight for me.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Katie. I'm sort of a weirdo. My parents haven't figured me out yet. To be fair, it took me a while to figure myself out. My brother, also weird.
Hi, would you like to talk to me about dinosaurs? No. Okay, thank you.
And my mom.
Katie face cupcakes.
All of us, really.
How about we put our phones down and we can make 10 seconds of unobstructed family eye contact. Starting now. See, this is good right here. This is natural.
But yeah, it's one I did find funny.
It's a good, like, I don't know. It's kind of like a good sneaky movie, like one of those that just kind of popped up out of nowhere and also just as quickly disappeared out of nowhere. Like, people just stopped talking about it as well. It's a great animated movie. I love the animation in it. It's very similar to the animation that was in, you have to help me out. Into the Spider-Verse, that's it. I was going to say the multiverse. Yeah, that's
which is interesting, because despite the fact that they're both produced by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, both these movies have completely different directors. So it's very interesting that as producers, they are able to have such a similar comic book-like animation style to them.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I love it. Like, I was... One of my favorite things about Spider-Man, that Spider-Man iteration, was the animation. I just thought it was so creative and a really good way of bringing comic book animation into the 21st century. The last time I watch some of the DC comics, but they remain the flat 2D that we saw when we were kids. But everything else, they've kind of haven't done it as well. And so I was really intrigued by that. And then Mitchells versus the Machines, it's a very different story. It's not a superhero story, but they do a really good job. And Maya Rudolph, in my opinion, I think she's one of the most underrated actresses working right now. Like, she's so good in everything that she does. She's always hilarious. She's always, I always hate to use like internet things, but it's like, she understands the assignment. I'm a cool kid. I can say that. So cool, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was just, if I'm completely honest with you, I don't know if it's going to end up in my top 10 at the very end of the year, but I really enjoyed the movie. It surprised me. And I mean, to be fair, I haven't watched it since, so that might be telling of it as well, but I really enjoyed it. So if anybody hasn't watched it yet, it's just on Netflix still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the voice work overall is pretty fantastic. I think it's very surprising. Yeah. Danny McBride as the father, in a very un-Danny McBride role.
I didn't know it was him, like, until I was looking up some information about the movie. And then I saw it was Danny McBride. I went, man, like,
Right.
I mean, it's nothing on Danny McBride. Like, I'm not trying to slag him off at all, but
No.
they could have gotten a lot of different people to play that role. It didn't have to be Danny McBride, which kind of makes me curious, like, why get Danny McBride if you're not going to let him be Danny McBride, you know? But maybe for him, it's a bit of a challenge to, like, that somebody finally let him do something different than what we always expect him to do. So,
yeah, because I guess I would sort of describe him as like toxic masculinity incarnate is like what his characters usually are. Just like has so much machismo. He's usually very douchey. He's very overbearing and condescending, and doesn't know when he's in the wrong, all that sort of stuff. And like complete opposite, just like, I know he's got a family. So like maybe this was like, every once in a while you hear about like famous people being like, I did this movie so that my kids could see something I'm in. And like, maybe that's
true. Yeah.
This is his movie where he gets to play a regular dad. And maybe that's, you know, as we all know, comedians aren't really who they are on screen. That's them performing. They do have an off switch and they're usually nothing like their characters. And so maybe this was closer to the real Danny McBride than the one we've seen in countless other movies, or his TV show Eastbound and Down, for anyone that's seen that, which is like him at his peak, most McBrideist.
Sure, McBrideist. That's nice. Yeah, I actually, as you were talking, I was like, I realized I thought it was John Goodman when I was first like, I remember thinking because only because the character, they made him look like John Goodman, like the actual animation looks very John Goodman-ish, but I was like, that doesn't sound like John Goodman. But I mean, yeah, it's great. And Fred Armisen is in it. Who else is in it? Olivia Colman. She's great too. Olivia Colman's actually pretty wonderful in it as well. And it's really bright and colorful, which I always think is fun. Like, it's animated movies should be really fun and pleasing to the eye, and they do an amazing job at it. And that's, I was actually when I was looking through my list, I realized I think 3 of the 5, they're all directorial debuts, including Mitchell's versus the Machine. Yeah, so it was purely a coincidence, but Pig is a directorial debut. 9 Days is a directorial debut. Interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but it's cool. Like, it's cool that there's people out there who their first crack at it, they're making some pretty high quality movies, in my opinion, anyways.
Well, do you have anything else to add about your top 5 list, or shall we move on?
You should watch Pig. I've been asking you. I keep asking you. I'm like, have you watched Pig yet? It's a fun movie. That comes up every couple of days. I know. I'm like, so have you seen it yet? Like, it's a great movie. Like, it's fun in a way that it's not Nicolas Cage fun, but it's fun. And it comes out on digital. It'll be out on digital when this gets released. So anybody can go in and rent it. You can buy it if you want. But definitely go watch 9 Days when it comes out in theaters. It's definitely worth watching in theaters. I'm going to go again. Like, I know I'm going to go again for sure.
Wow. Okay. Very high praise.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then here is my top 5. In number 5, we've got The Dig, the Carey Mulligan Netflix movie, which probably won't end up making my final top 10, but for now it's up there. One that I enjoyed. Coming in at number 4 is the direct to Disney Plus film Luca. Little dig at Disney pissing off their Pixar counterparts. Coming in at number 3 is the A24 film Zola. Coming in at number 2 is, speaking of being snooty, pretentious festival people, is a Japanese film called Under the Open Sky that I saw during the Toronto Japanese Film Festival, and is currently playing at the Fantasia Festival, which we're going to do coverage for later this month. So if anyone's checking out Fantasia, check out Under the Open Sky. And then coming in at number 1, where there might be some debate between us or some hands thrown, The Green Knight.
I kind of figured. You know what? Of your 5, I think The Dig is the one that I'm most surprised about. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe not, because I remember you were quite high on it when I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but I did notice that you were quite up on the movie, and you seem to like kind of period films as well. I've noticed that about you. But The Dig is one that, I'm surprised. I feel like if you pooled like 100 people right now, I don't know if people would remember The Dig. Also because it came out really early in 2021, like I think January.
It was like the
January
week after
release?
the Oscars or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I'm surprised by that one. But what exactly? Not to make you defend The Dig, not that I hated it, but let's start with The Dig. Like, why? What about it? Was it that kind of gravitated to you for you?
What are they?
We're standing in someone's graveyard, I reckon. Viking? Oh, maybe older.
Mr. Brown is an archaeologist.
Well, I'm an excavator.
You've come to dig up the mounds.
So you think there's something beneath?
Who are those men?
They're from the museum.
Ye gods!
Mrs. Pretty, I think you'd better come and see.
I don't know. I think for the most part, this really sounds like I'm damning it with faint praise, but it is so unoffensive of a film. It's, it's got a really sweet story. There's some good character work between both Carey Mulligan and Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes being like, we often get like very extreme versions of his performances, and this was just like a nice, very middle of the road, quaint performance by him. And so I sort of appreciated that, and a little bit of will they or won't they aspect going on before we find out that he's actually married and still committed to his wife and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like I said, I don't think this is going to make my final top 10. This is just being the case of like, at the beginning of the year, when I start my new list of movies I'm watching, it was like, well, I guess this is kind of at the top by default right now because I haven't seen anything else. And then slowly, as I was seeing more and more stuff, I was like, yeah, but The Dig was kind of better anyways. Like I think we talked about this before. The Lily James stuff really does not work in this movie. But like, if you take out that subplot completely, this is a very easy to watch film that's not going to offend anyone. And you're probably going to come out, with some level of satisfaction, which is like I said, damning it with faint praise, but that I liked it. I don't know.
That makes sense. I see where you're coming from. Like, it's kind of how I felt. I didn't put this on my list, but it's kind of how I felt about Stillwater in a way, where it's not that I came out feeling good about Stillwater. Like if you've watched Stillwater, you'll know it's not a typically happy ending. But it's just one of those movies you watch and you go, yeah, that's like, it's kind of a quieter drama, like it's just kind of a point blank drama, which kind of oddly we don't get very much in Hollywood circles, anyways. So that's interesting. The other one I want to talk about is Under the Open Sky.
Yes,
I know we talked about this at Toronto Japanese Film Festival in that episode. I hadn't seen it. You were, I think, the only one that had watched it. Naomi didn't watch it either, did she?
No, she did not. Yeah,
no,
it was just me.
Yeah, I'm so surprised that it ended up so high on your list. I definitely need to watch it. We have it, like you said, it's on Fantasia, so I'm gonna check it out. Did you expect it to land so high? Like number 2 is a pretty, like it beat out Zola. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I said, I keep track on Letterboxd of everything that I'm watching year to date, so it's super easy to be like, okay, I know exactly where everything is. So when I rate something 4 stars or whatever, I look at all the other 4-star movies. I'm like, okay, did I like it more or less than this one? Okay, now I saw it in there. Do I like it more or less than the next one? And then just sort of puzzle piece it together. And this is another one of the ones where every movie that I've seen that I've sort of rated similarly, I keep thinking back to the main performance in this film, and it's just such a powerful lead performance. It's the actor Koji Yakusho, and he's been in some stuff that I've seen, like Memoirs of a Geisha. He was in Babel. He's been a whole bunch of other really high profile Japanese films, in some North American ones as well, and it's just one of those movies where the performance is so strong, it sort of supersedes everything. He's in every single scene, and just you absolutely gravitate towards him. And it's interesting because I looked at some of the other reviews of this film on Letterboxd and the like, and most people seem to be mixed to kind of down on it. But like, I don't know. It's just something about it just really, really stuck with me, and I had to rate it so highly. The movie as a whole, yeah, it's kind of so. The plot's a little iffy, but like it's one of those times where the performance in it just propels it straight to the top.
What were people down about it on Letterboxd?
It seems mostly to be pacing issues. It does kind of stop and start. It doesn't really go anywhere during certain moments, and when you're expecting more climactic scenes, we're not really given them, which, you know, maybe is a case of people wanting more from a movie about an ex-Yakuza gangster who's released from prison and trying to get his life back on track. And he has like a few scenes early on where he's got anger issues, and so he has outbursts and stuff like that, and he gets in a couple fist fights, which is a little funny for like a man in his 70s to be in fist fights with 20-year-olds. But like he pulls it off because he's got this gravitas and this weight where, you know, so many actors, like I'll even compare it to someone like Brad Pitt, where he was just a pretty face for the longest time, and then finally he got this lived in look, same as George Clooney. As soon as he started to like actually look his age and like show some wrinkles and show that he's lived a little bit, suddenly their characters got a whole lot deeper and more interesting, and I feel it totally with this character as well.
That's a really nice kind of summary of that. I will say Brad Pitt and George Clooney, they both got better with age. They really did.
Are you talking about acting ability or looks?
Looks, because I think that generally they've always been pretty good actors. Like I wouldn't say that their acting sucked when they were pretty, but like I think they were always pretty good. But they just, in terms of, you know, the lived in look, it works for them. I need to definitely check that out though, because especially now that you've put it so high up. I saw Luca.
We do not go anywhere near the surface. Got it? Everything good is above the surface. Walking. Air! The sky, clouds, the sun. Whoa, don't look at it. Just kidding. Definitely look at it.
Have you ever gone to the human town?
Yeah. I'm kind of an expert.
Luca, for me, sat very middle of the road. Like, I liked it, and I thought it was I thought it was sweet. I thought it was heartfelt. I liked the animation of it, but for some reason, it just didn't stick with me. But obviously, it did with you. Now, my question for you about Luca, though, is I did see some reviews and a bit of discourse about Luca, about the two boys and how this was actually a queer film. They were saying like it's about two kids who are kind of dealing with, as all kids are, dealing with growing up and discovering who you are as an individual. But then the director came out and was like, it's not about that. They're just friends. And now I don't know if that was Disney basically saying, hey, like, you know, we don't do that. And because they're worried about numbers in China or other countries as well, not just China, but that's always a consideration for Disney. But did you get that vibe from it when you watched it? Or actually, I guess before you answer that, did you know about that discourse before you watched it?
Yeah, I kind of knew about it a little bit. I didn't watch this movie right away. I watched it about 2 or 3 weeks after it ended up coming out. And it seemed like everyone was being like, this is the kids' version of Call Me By Your Name.
Yeah,
so, I went in with that. And whether the director is, because this is based on him as a child with his childhood best friend, and both of them are straight, and it's Disney, so you can't have explicitly queer characters. Like the most queer character in the Disney canon right now is LeFou from the Beauty and the Beast movie, which is like such a passing sort of thing where it's like, oh, hey, in the background, he held a guy's hand. Where it's like, but like, sure, it's a kid's movie and you don't want to put too much on it, but looking through a queer lens of this movie, this is clearly a queer love story. And like my Letterboxd review of it, my first line of it is, straight girls get in the way of everything. Or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is. Which is obviously a joke review, and like I'm not serious about that. I'm just sort of like memeing along with it, where everyone's calling it "Call Me by Your Name" for kids. But but like I'm sorry. This is definitely a queer allegorical story. And like, I was listening to another film podcast talking about it, and they were talking about how when they are their real selves in the water, how they're all rainbowy and shimmery and they look beautiful and all that sort of stuff. And like, and this movie came out during Pride Month. It's like, come on, how many more layers do we need to put on this thing? These boys love each other.
When I watched it, I didn't see, like, I didn't hear this beforehand, this kind of an analysis of the movie. So when I came out watching it, I was just like, oh yeah, like they're cool. Like it's a cute movie. Like, you know, I thought, I was like, wow. I was going to say, what's the main character's name again? His name's Luca.
Luca? I don't know.
Yeah, it's Luca. Yeah. When Luca, like, calls it, like, he leaves his friend out to dry, literally, like, he's in the water and he's like, oh, look at that. I'm like, dude, Luca, like, that's rough. You know, you're a crap friend, man. I was like, this is such a betrayal. But I honestly didn't come away with the idea that it was about two kids, I guess, like I said, like discovering who they were, and who they were two gay young men, you know? And then I read a review, I think it was on That Shelf, actually. I think it was Victor Stills wrote that review. And he talked about it, and I felt like such an idiot. I was like, oh, that completely went right over my head. And I was like, I felt so stupid that I was like, oh, I didn't even see that. And I mean, talk about, you know, straight girls ruin everything. I clearly ruined that. Like, I was just like, it just didn't pass through my head that was even kind of a possibility. And I've said it before. I don't think I've said it on the podcast before, but I've said it before, where I definitely have a blind spot when it comes to queer cinema. Not that I have anything against it, obviously. It's just, I just don't watch enough. And I know that that's something I need to fix. Like, I need to actively make sure I go out and search titles and different filmmakers. But I really felt like an idiot after I read that. And then I read so many other reviews. I was like, oh, I misread Luca, the whole thing. I was just like, oh, it's just like a fun little Italian, I don't know, movie. Which, by the way, Maya Rudolph also in that one.
Right? Playing mom again. Yeah, she's
great.
Animated films, yeah.
And she's great in both.
Go-to mom. Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. That's a great list. I actually wasn't expecting. I think Green Knight and Zola were the two that I was expecting on your
yeah,
your
that's
list.
a pretty, film hipster pick. Like, it's pretty safe to assume that I'll probably have those near the top of my list again at the end of the year.
I was like, yeah, those ones will definitely be in there. But otherwise, though, Luca, because you've mentioned it before, where you're not huge on animated movies as well. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of surprised Luca made it. But again, like, it's not just an animated movie, is it? It's a lot more, which went right over my head.
And I guess to even be more hot takey about it, like, I think it's close to top tier Pixar. Like, it's not golden age Pixar, which was like that few year run in the mid 2000s where everything was like the best movie of the year sort of thing. But I think it's probably in like the 10 or so range. I like the intimacy of it. And I feel like with Pixar movies, the last few, they've been trying to like be these big expansive films and try to have these big grandiose messages. And I like that. Just like, it's a simple story. It's about two boys who are literally fish out of water trying to find who they are. And it's got like all these great little Italian jokes. And maybe because I'm half Italian, I like loved all the jokes about Vespas and pasta and all that sort of stuff. And it just like all those little Italianisms just like made me giggle to myself. And so I appreciated the intimateness of the actual story.
I mean, you make a really good point, because when I reviewed it, I think I said something very similar, that I said it's not the Pixar that we've kind of come to know in the last couple of years or so, especially because the last Pixar movie that came out was Soul, and Soul is like not for children. It is an existential crisis just waiting to happen. It was my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies. No, it wasn't my favorite. I think it was number 3. I think I put it at last year, but it's an amazing movie. But I think because Pixar was on this trajectory, you're absolutely correct. When Luca came out, people thought, oh, it's not as good. It's like, it's not that it's not as good. This is actually more traditional Pixar / Disney, like what we grew up with as animated movies. Like, this is a lot closer to that. And it's, I mean, if I'm a kid, I would prefer Luca 10 out of 10 times more than I would want to watch Soul, because Soul is something you got to
100%.
kind of you got to be a little bit older to appreciate Soul. You basically have to be like beaten down a little bit in life, and then Soul makes sense to you. But if you're 8, like, Luca's the best kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think Luca was a bit unfairly reviewed in that sense, because it's, we're comparing it to Soul, and they're completely different films. Just happens to be by the same studio.
All right, so I think we should move on now and have a little bit of fun taking down some movies. Not something I usually end up doing, but I figured why the hell not, because it might be the only chance I'll ever get to talk about some of these movies to begin with. So what are your bottom 5 films of the year so far?
All right, so I hope this is it, but my number 1, this better be the worst thing I watched this year. I'm going to be really upset if it's not. All right, so number 5, it breaks my heart to say it, but it was Coming to America. The sequel to Coming to America.
Oh.
Yeah, that one really disappointed me quite a bit. Number 4 is a Netflix movie called The Last Letter from Your Lover. Number 3 is Cherry, which was a Russo brothers Tom Holland picture. Number 2, Mortal Kombat. Again, another one that disappointed me so much. And number 1, again, this better be the worst thing I watch all year, is the Warner Brothers commercial Space Jam 2.
Oh, God.
Such a bad movie.
I haven't seen any of those movies. Maybe because I try to avoid watching bad movies. There was a couple that I was minorly curious about. I was a little curious when I was struggling to come up with episode ideas for this show. I thought about doing a remake of the Mortal Kombat. And I was like, but even the original one doesn't look that good. So I feel like I'd just be wasting my time. What was your number 5 again?
I've just discovered that I may have a son here in this land. How much child support is she getting from? The king pays no child support.
No child support for 30 years and you came back? You was a dummy!
Hello, I am Hakim Jaffer, king of Zamunda. You are the heir to the throne.
Yes, my son. He's supposed to be like the prince of Wakanda.
Wakanda is a fictional place.
Not to everybody.
Zamunda is a very real nation.
I don't need no handout. Wait a minute. All right, I'm gonna pack. Okay, baby.
Coming to America. Coming to.
Right. Yeah,
number
that was
2.
another one where
yeah.
I've never saw the first one, so it's not like I've got a deep fondness for it. And I know it's great.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where it came out and people were like, yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah, there isn't much to it, but yeah, it's pretty funny. I was just like, okay, maybe I'll watch, but I was like, oh, but then I also have to watch the first one. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do that. And so I just, once again, skipped that as well. So yeah, that's an interesting list and ones that I have no interest in seeing. I don't have any interest in seeing Cherry. That movie looked terrible. Ugh. And Space Jam, I know we all have a fond nostalgia for the original, but let's not kid ourselves. It wasn't a great movie. It was a fun movie, and I'm not in the mood of seeing a bad movie that's also fun at this stage of my life. That's a kid.
So movie. I will say your comment about you would need to watch the first Coming to America. You don't, because the second one is literally the first one. That's the problem with it, is that it's a copy. It's not anything different. And then you kind of wonder, why did Eddie Murphy do this? Why would you wait? I want to say 30 years. I want to say 30 years since it came out. The original came out. Why wait this long to just bring out a movie that is so subpar? And it's an unfunny version of the original, which is a classic in terms of 80s comedies, but also I don't want to say it's a crown jewel of his career, but it's a big movie for his career. If you look through his filmography, Coming to America is one of his big ones. So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend any of these, obviously. The one that I might give a bit of a pass to is The Last Letter from Your Lover, because I do think that there's an audience for that, and I'm not that audience. But yeah, Cherry was just, I don't know, it's trying too hard. I think that was my biggest problem with it, is that it's clearly the Russo brothers trying very, very hard to say, look, we can do more than just superhero movies. And it turns out not really. They can't really. It's
Which
okay.
is so odd because I grew up as a huge Arrested Development fan and then later a Community fan.
Yeah.
And so like they directed some of the best episodes of those two series. And as soon as I found out that they got hired by Marvel, I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. That's so awesome. And now that they've got like literally 3 of like the 10 highest grossing films of all time, it's like, well, what else can you do? And I don't know what else they can do.
Cherry is this, it talks about like a really important issue in North America, but also in the world. Like the opiate crisis is a genuine crisis, like it's really, really, it's really terrible. And it just kind of makes, I don't even know how to describe it. Like it comes away of being such a movie that is about, it's a movie that is about something so deep and something so, I hate to say it, but it's really rich with material to talk about, but yet the movie comes away as being really hollow. Like the movie doesn't really come away as you feel really impacted. I think a similar movie, like, what was it called? It's the Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet movie, A Beautiful Boy. That was also about the opiate crisis. And I think Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet were better as, like, their performances were definitely far better than the movie itself. The movie itself wasn't great. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing that Hollywood's having a tough time seeking out this particular subject matter when it seems like it should be a home run, like a really easy home run. But maybe they're just not getting the right people behind it to actually talk about it genuinely and authentically.
No, I think that's the biggest problem is you can't hire some people like the Russo brothers and expect nuance. Like if it was someone like Sean Baker, who's done movies like The Florida Project and Tangerine, where he actually is able to be a voice for people who are usually invisible by society, he could probably do something like that. But if you're taking a big budget mentality where, Hollywood elites have already been derided for decades of being out of touch liberals, you're going to get that sort of crap anyways. So like, you're not going to be able to make a big budget Apple TV movie about that product, about that subject matter. All right, then, unless you have any last points about your bottom 5, we can move over to mine. What do you say?
Move on. There's nothing to, just don't watch these movies, basically. Like, there's much better things out there, and just don't waste your time watching any of these ones. Again, unless it's something that's like super up your street, like you really love Mortal Kombat, or you really love, the JoJo Myers books, then knock yourself out. But otherwise, just save yourself some time.
Okay. Maybe we should have done the bottom ones first, because I feel like we're going to just get very angry and bitter about cinema.
Probably.
All right. So coming in at number 5 for me is In the Earth, the Ben Wheatley horror film. At number 4 is the Rosamund Pike Netflix film I Care a Lot. Number 3 is the Japanese film School Meals Time. And number 2 is another documentary that I saw during, I believe it was Hot Docs, Withdrawn Arms. And then the first one is The World to Come. What are your thoughts on that list?
Who is that?
Good afternoon.
I'm Tally.
Abigail.
I hope I'm not keeping you from something.
I'm glad you've come. Meeting you has made my day.
Well, how pleasant and uncommon it is to make someone's day.
What was the last one? Your number 1 worst one?
You haven't heard of this one? It's The World to Come. It premiered at Sundance, and then it came out, and then it quickly died away. It is basically another version of Portrait of a Lady on Fire that absolutely fails spectacularly. Did you also see Ammonite from last year?
I didn't, because I heard it was literally a ripoff of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, like a very lesser than ripoff of it. So
and it was terrible.
Yeah, I didn't bother.
That movie had zero of the passion. The story was somewhat interesting, but there was zero passion. And flip side, The World to Come had some decent passion, but the movie itself was just so bland and boring, and it took forever to get any of the actual attraction between these two women, that once again, it's just like, what the hell am I watching here? It starred Catherine Watterson and Vanessa Kirby. Vanessa Kirby with terrific hair in this movie. And then Casey Affleck and Christopher Abbott as their husbands. But yeah, it's basically like two pioneer women who live next door to each other end up falling madly in love with each other because their husbands never pay attention to them, basically.
Oh, okay. That's sure. Yeah, I now that you're saying Vanessa Kirby, I do remember that movie coming out, and I do remember people on Twitter saying like, "Can we stop it with the white women lesbian stories?" Like I remember reading that and thinking like, "Oh, never!" Like especially these days when we're looking for movies that are more inclusive and they show a wider spectrum of society. It was kind of funny when I heard someone be like, "Can we just stop with these? Because it's getting a bit much now." Yeah, I didn't even bother watching that. And I completely forgot it existed until you just said it.
It's so funny because when it premiered at Sundance, all the reviews were just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And Steph and I watched it together, but we got a screening access to it and we both watched it and we're like, "What is this shit?" Like we both love Portrait of the Lady on Fire. I saw it before her and then made her watch it later on and she's like, "This movie is amazing." And like she loves it. Portrait of the Lady on Fire is like my phone screensaver. It's been like that for like a year and a half, 2 years now. Love that movie. Saw Ammonite and it was just like, oh my God, this is garbage. And then this is the triumph of white women that are in love with each other that shouldn't be in love with each other because of the time period. And it just like steadily goes downhill.
Yeah, I agree with whoever tweeted that. Let's stop it with the white lady lesbian movies. Like I feel like there's a lot more interesting if we're talking, I mean, we funny enough, just talking about Luca and queer cinema. It's like, there's a lot of much more interesting stories out there. And I think there's one that I watched at South by Southwest, the Potato Dreams of America. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the movie that made me realize, like, I don't watch enough queer cinema. And clearly The World to Come is one I should miss. I don't need to watch that one. So looking at your list, 2 of the 5 were 2 that I have seen. I've seen In the Earth, which I don't know if it would end up in my bottom. Well, clearly it didn't, but it's definitely not up near the top for me. Like if I divide my films that I've seen in 2021 half and half, it would definitely be in the bottom half. Just kind of an uninspired little movie that came out that it's going to be forgotten quite easily, I'm sure. But School Lunchtime, the School Battle Lunchtime, that was one that you saw at Toronto Japanese Film Festival that I really enjoyed. I know you did not like it. Was it the humor? It was the humor. I remember that you said that you weren't a big fan of.
It was just too silly for me. Yeah. I know we had a bit of an argument about that one because both you and Naomi liked it and I didn't. And it wasn't even an argument, more just I shut up and let you two gush about it because I didn't really want to slag on a movie for a festival coverage.
Naomi, I think she actually was closer to you. She didn't really like it that much.
Maybe. I think she was just like in love with the main actor.
I was going to say, it was about the main actor because he was acting very off brand. Like he's usually kind of the stud, I guess, like a real leading man. And in this one, he just kind of played incredibly silly. And I remember, if I remember correctly, I think she wasn't a huge fan of that, but she does like that actor. Yes, I do recall that. I Care a Lot. That was one that people actually thought Rosamund Pike might get some award buzz was around her, wasn't it? I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
she got nominated for a Golden Globe. I think she got nominated for a Golden Globe.
Really?
Yeah.
The Golden Globes suck.
They don't even exist anymore, let's be honest now. But yeah, she got nominated for that, as did a lot of like music and what is it, Emily Goes to Paris. Those all got nominated too. So that tells you the quality. But was she good in it? Or is it like a case of just the whole movie is crap?
Yeah, she was pretty good. Like I've already mostly forgotten this movie anyways about what I thought about it. It was just one of those things where it was okay-ish. Like the actual conflict and stuff like that was going on just didn't really make a lot of sense. And I had trouble caring because she was such a vile person. And then she was like going up against an even more vile person. And I don't know if you're supposed to sympathize with either of them or not. And in the end, you realize that you're not really supposed to anyways, but like, it was just one of those movies where like you're watching, you're just like, I could care less. I think that's why I said in my review, I was like, I could care less about this movie. I as opposed to I care a lot. Like, yeah, it just did nothing for me. Rosamund Pike looked fantastic, and she wears the hell out of power suits. And like, I love it when she's got like her blonde hair and like a really harsh like trim on her haircut. She looks super good with that. And like, I'm all for it. But like, yeah, this movie did nothing for me.
Of these 5 movies, which was the one that you went into it hoping it would be really great and ended up being crap? Or not crap, I shouldn't say crap, just one that you didn't like.
Yeah, that's tough. In the Earth, it just sort of like falls in that like mushy middle section where a movie that I didn't really care for, but I don't actively hate. I could have replaced that with any number of movies. The Courier, I was like the Benedict Cumberbatch movie, Lockdown, the Anne Hathaway movie, a couple of documentaries that I've watched for these festivals, stuff like that, where it's just like I could, if you told me to replace that, I could have easily done that. So it's just disappointing. I care a lot. Similarly, I mostly forget about this movie. It's very stylish, but yeah, I didn't really care one way or another. School Meals Time, I had no way one way going in or another of thoughts about it. The World to Come, I had a bit of high hopes for it just because it looked interesting and I liked the cast that was involved. But Withdrawn Arms probably angered me the most. This is a documentary about one of the men who in the at the 1968 Olympics did the Black Power salute, but there was 2 of them on the podium that did that. And so this documentary is about one of the guys, and it basically just like completely erases the history of the other guy, and we don't really learn anything. And then it is more about the art project to commemorate him than the actual athlete himself. And just like the whole time, it just felt like they were trying to sell something to me, and like just felt so disingenuous the whole time. I'm like, this is like, you know, top 3, top 5 most iconic sports images ever. And it just was such a forced documentary where like, I just felt like nauseous afterwards of like how terrible this was and how it seemed like it was doing such a disservice to what that imagery meant to so many people. I
remember you not liking this one or being more angry
about it.
Yeah, because because like you said, like it's I guess it's kind of like Cherry, but not as, I don't think as heavy. There's such a important subject matter there, and especially being a documentary, like it's a bit of responsibility that you put on your shoulders when you're going to tell a story like that, and you better do it right. And I remember when you told me that it didn't end up being so great, I was really disappointed because, especially given everything that's going on in the world, it's an important, even more important story than it already was so many years ago. So yeah, that's a shame. So Dakota, to not end this on such a downer note of our 5 worst, do you have any honorable mention, like one honorable mention for the top 5, not bottom 5, obviously?
Yeah, sure. You know what? I'm gonna give a shout out to Shiva Baby. That's one that I think people will really like. If you liked Uncut Gems and you love having panic-induced anxiety attacks, you should watch Shiva Baby.
I didn't really like that movie that much.
Oh no.
I know. It didn't, I don't know why. Like I really thought I would like it. Like I went into it being like, oh, this is going to be great. And I watched it and I thought, yeah, this is good, I guess. Like, but it just didn't, I don't know. Like it didn't click with me, I think, in the way that it's clicked with a lot of people. But I think it's interesting. Like, I don't know. I feel bad not liking it. Sure.
Can I give you another option that you might like? And that is the horror comedy Werewolves Within. Have you seen that one yet?
I haven't actually. I've been meaning to.
This is right up your wheelhouse.
It's with Sam Richardson, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And he is so adorable in this movie.
I love him. I love him deeply. He's amazing. Yes, I would 100%. Yeah. I really wanted to watch that. That's a good shout.
Yeah. And for fans of RuPaul Drag Race, Cheyenne Jackson is in this, or I guess American Horror Story, which he's also known for. He plays one half of a gay couple with Harvey Guillen, who is Guillermo on What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. They're hilarious together as a gay power couple in this. But yeah, a very funny movie and some somewhat decent frights, I guess. But yeah, it's a good movie, and I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's been on my to-do list, like my to-watch list. It's definitely one I want to get on, yeah.
Do you have any honorable mentions then?
I would have said Zola, I think, but we already talked about it. I would say like 2 movies that were in film festivals that I don't believe have a wide release yet, but I'll push them just so if it kind of lands in a film festival near you, go and watch it. Is one I just mentioned, which was Potato Dreams of America. I really, really liked that one. I thought it was it's a great, kind of very creative and very innovative film. And the other one I would say is a documentary that we saw at Hot Docs as well. You watched it too, which is Set. I know it's playing in I think the Melbourne Film Festival at the moment. But yeah, it's doing the rounds, and hopefully it lands back in a wider release, whether that's streamer or in theater. But yeah, those are probably the 2 that I thought about adding in and then decided against it because I know that not everybody's going to be able to watch them just yet.
All right. Well, there you go. And while we were just reflecting on the movies that we've already seen, both you and I have just put out articles about our 10 most anticipated films of the year. You did this, and then I got so excited that I decided to write a rebuttal, which was a lot of fun to kind of look through what movies are still coming out. So there'll be links to both of those in the show notes. And thank you for encouraging me to do some writing, which I don't often do.
You should. You're a great writer too. I always like reading your writing.
Oh, thank you. It could be so time consuming. That's the only thing.
It is very time consuming, 100%.
And I don't know how to be brief. That's the other problem. Well, do you have anything else that you've worked on that you want to plug or give a shout out? If not, where can people find you and more of your work?
I'm trying to think. What am I going to have out by the time? No, I think it might be the same old. But yeah, you can go to Exclaim in That Shelf, POV magazine. I write reviews for all 3 of those outlets. And you can go to rachelcage.com for even more of my ramblings.
Awesome. Well, make sure you let us know what you think of our best and worst movies of the year so far. Do you have any similarities, differences? Do you have some angry letters that you need to send to the editor? Send them to me and I'll read them at Rachel next time. But you can follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ContraZoomPod. And you can send us an email to contrazoompod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you do like to listen to your podcast on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. Thanks for checking us out.